Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today, since I did Graveyard Shift the other day, I figured I'd do another Stephen King adaptation that I really like. This one from 1985, and that movie is Silver Bullet. If you're my age, a lot of us grew up on this movie. But this movie was made for $7 million. It was released October 11th of 85, and it made $12.3 million and some change. So it made a little bit of money. It wasn't a huge hit by any stretch of the imagination. Now, this movie had a little bit of a trouble production. The original writer-director was Don Coscarelli, made famous by the movie Phantasm, which he wrote and directed. And he did Phantasm 2, 3, and 4 after this movie. And he'd also done The Beastmaster, a little scene movie called Survival Quest with Lance Henriksen. And later on, Don Coscarelli did Bubba Hotep with Bruce Campbell and Ossie Davis, as Bruce Campbell as Elvis and Ossie Davis as JFK in a nursing home battle in the Mummy. If you've never seen that movie, check it out. It's fantastic. And he was actively working on it, and he was working on it for quite a while. And him and Stephen King was actually approved of what Don Coscarelli had been doing with the script and his ideas for the movie. But the producer of the movie, Dino De Laurentiis, didn't like what Don Coscarelli was doing and was having fights with Don, and Don left the project, which was unfortunate because I think it would have been awesome to see what Don Coscarelli could have done with that material, because I think he's a very good director that doesn't get enough credit. But that didn't work out, and Don left. So they brought in a first-time director, Daniel Attias. This is Daniel Attias' only movie. After this, he went on and direct TV. He's still directing TV to this day. But this is the only film he's ever done. They hired Corey Haim to play Marty in the movie. As we all know, Corey Haim was huge in the 80s, him and Corey Feldman. Sadly, we also know that Corey Haim died some years ago. Unfortunately, he had his own demons, and he passed away. We also have Megan Follows as Jane, his sister. The great Gary Busey as Uncle Red. I do like Gary Busey quite a bit. I've always liked his performances. I know they're over the top sometimes, but I've always liked Gary Busey. Everett McGill as Reverend Lowe. Everett McGill was in Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood. He was in The People Under the Stairs, that Wes Craven movie. I like that film. And he was also in the Steven Seagal classic, Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. I'm just joking. I don't consider Under Siege 2 a classic, but I do like that movie. It's not as good as the first one, but Everett McGill's an effective bad guy. And also Terry O'Quinn as Sheriff Joe. Now, how I first seen this movie was we had on our local cable provider. I've told the story before in a previous review, so I won't dwell on it too long. But on our local cable provider was a station out of New York, Channel 11, WPIX out of New York. And about halfway through September through October, they would run a horror movie during the week every night from 8 to 10. And that's how I got to see most of the horror movies I like to this day. But there were certain movies they always played, and sometimes as the years went on, they would add not newer movies, but other movies as well. But the ones they'd play all the time were Silver Bullet, Creepshow, Phantasm 2, Halloween 3, They Live, The Fog, The Howling, and some other films. So that's how I was introduced to Silver Bullet back in the day. And I've always liked it. It's not my favorite werewolf movie, but I've always liked this movie. So let's get into the movie. A little history of my history with it. I own it now on iTunes, and you could buy it. Shout Factory just released a special edition of this film with a lot of extra special features. I own it on iTunes. I didn't buy it to Blu-ray, but the Shout Factory always does a great job with their products. If you're into this movie and you like collecting movies, check it out. See if it's something you'd want to purchase. So the movie opens with this railroad worker who is doing some work on the tracks. He's a little drunk. And there's a point of view shot of the beast, which, if you don't know what the beast is in this movie, you wouldn't know what it is yet, but it's watching him from the tree line. And the railroad worker actually is the same gentleman who played Lou Brown, the manager for the Cleveland Indians in the movie Major League, which I love that movie. It's hilarious. That's him. He's been in other movies, but that's the movie I think of every time I see this guy on screen. And the beast comes out after him and decapitates him. And we cut to the next day. Now in town, they're blowing it off to, everybody knew he was a drunk. So they thought he got drunk and fell over and his car ran over him. the railroad car that he was on ran over him. So, and we're introduced. This is our first shot of Tarker's Mills, Maine. That's where this movie is set, which is Stephen King always writes his stories for Maine mostly. There is no such place as Tarker's Hills, Maine, and this movie wasn't filmed in Maine. This movie was actually filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina, and the surrounding areas, because Dino De Laurentiis had a studio in Wilmington back then. So they shot it in about 2.5 hours from where I'm sitting right now. That's where they filmed this movie. The novel this is based on is Stephen King's book called Cycle of the Werewolf, which I've never read, so I don't know how accurate or close to the book this is. So we're introduced to Marty and Jane. Marty is crippled from the waist down. He's in a wheelchair, and his sister's a little older, and they're at a 4th of July celebration in the downtown area of this town. And they're typical siblings. They love each other, but they fight a lot. You get that right away. And Jane overhears these people arguing. It's this guy and this woman. And this woman tells this guy they must be having an affair, and she tells him she's pregnant. And he doesn't want to hear it. She's like, no, it's not mine. You're just a whore or something. And she's all upset. And cut to that night, she lives with her mom in this old Victorian house. And she's up in the bedroom. She's taking pills. She's going to kill herself. She's so upset over this. And the point of view of the werewolf, although if you don't know what it is, you wouldn't know because they don't show it yet, climbs up to the roof line, busts through the window, and kills this woman. Well, the town chalks this one up to a bear attack or something, which doesn't make sense, but the movie must move forward. And we do get a glimpse of the werewolf in this scene. Not a long shot. You don't see it very much. It's just a quick glimpse of it, and it's gone. So the next couple weeks later, Marty's out playing with his friend, and it's getting later in the day, and his sister comes to get him and says it's dinner time. So he leaves, but his friend stays behind and says, I'm only going to stay a little bit longer, and I'm going to go. His dad goes into the bar and asks people if they've seen his son. He can't find him. He hasn't come home for dinner. And they go to this park, him and the other deputy, and the sheriff is walking towards them with a kite in his hand covered in blood. Here, the beast ripped the kid apart. And now the people in town are in a tizzy. There's a curfew that goes into effect, and they have this mob that gathers, and they go into the woods to hunt whatever this thing is down and kill it. And there's a really effective sequence in this moment, in these scenes. A group of these people go down in this little gully, and it's foggy up to their chest, and you can't see anything. And all of a sudden, they're hearing growling. And then one by one, it starts killing them. And it's a very effective sequence. They can't see the beast, and they don't know where they are. They're kind of turned around because of all this fog. It's a really cool little scene. And then Marty, his Uncle Red, had built this new wheelchair for him, this motorized wheelchair, and he calls it Silver Bullet. And he gives Marty some fireworks to set off. And Marty sneaks out of the house one night and goes to this pond. And he's on this bridge in the middle of this pond lighting off the fireworks that his uncle gave him. And as he's out there having fun, the werewolf starts coming towards him across the bridge. And he sees it, and he shoots the rocket, hits the werewolf in the eye, and takes off for home. So now we know what the beast is. It's a werewolf. And Marty knows this. He's seen it, and he's trying to convince his sister of it. And eventually he does convince her to do some investigating with him around town to figure out who has an eye patch on, because obviously whoever is the werewolf has to have some damage on their face. Well, as they do some investigating and they're around, Jane finds out it's the Reverend, because she goes to the Reverend's house to dump off some bottles for this bottle drive they're having for the church. And she's startled by the Reverend in the garage, and he has a patch over her eye. And she goes home and tells Marty immediately. And they don't know what to do, so they go to Uncle Red. He won't believe him at first, but they convince him to get their parents out of town because they know the Reverend's going to come for them, and to create a silver bullet out of their silver necklaces, which he does. And they sit up at their house waiting to see if he'll show up. And it's about 1, 2 in the morning, and Uncle Red's kind of pissed. And he's like, go to bed. I can't believe I let you talk me in this. I'll sit up the rest of the night, but I don't ever want to hear anything about this again if nothing happens. Just then, the power goes out. The werewolf bursts through the wall, and we have our final confrontation. And eventually they shoot him in the eye with a bullet, and they realize, Uncle Red realizes, oh shit, the kids were right. I should have believed them all along. And that's the end of the movie. Now, this final scene with Gary Busey gets thrown around the room by the werewolf, never bit. He just gets thrown around a lot. Gary Busey did all of his own stunts. As a matter of fact, Gary Busey ad-libbed a lot of his dialogue in this movie. And he's really good in the film about playing this uncle. It's kind of a drunk and kind of a screw-up, but he loves his nephew and loves spending time with him. And I thought he played it really nicely. Corey Haim's really good in the movie, too, and you feel bad for him because he's in this wheelchair. Everybody does good work. The directing's okay. It's very TV movie-ish. There's some very stylish, creepy shots, but for the most part, it's just standard point-and-shoot kind of stuff. That's why I said I would have loved to see what Don Coscarelli could do with the material. I think it could have been something really special. As it stands, I do like the movie. Don't get me wrong. The werewolf design's not my favorite. It looks kind of like a half bear, half werewolf hybrid. I don't know. It's just not my favorite design, and it's not very convincing when you see it you don't really see it for a long period of time till the end when it bursts through the wall, and then you kind of get a good look at it, and it's not very convincing. It's convincing enough that it doesn't pull you all the way out of the movie, but you can tell as soon as you see it, it doesn't look very real. Okay, it's not American Werewolf in London or The Howling, but it's pretty good. I would give this movie a 7.25 out of 10. I really like this movie. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. That might cloud my judgment on it, but it's one of those movies where every October I watch it. It's like a warm blanket or, a home-style meal. Just something to make you feel... You can sit down and watch it. It's not that long. It's like an hour and 35 minutes. You can have fun with it. The characters in the movie you like a lot. And it's an interesting story. And you can just have fun with it. It's not the greatest werewolf movie ever, but it's definitely a movie that I really like and I revisit often. So yeah, that's it for me for Silver Bullet. I give it a 7.25 out of 10. Have you ever seen it? What are your thoughts on it? Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this film. Is this one of your favorite werewolf films? Is this one of your favorite Stephen King adaptations? But that's it for me. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, join me here. I put a review up, a couple of reviews a week if I have time. I've been very busy lately with other things. But yeah, I hope you liked the video. Thanks for joining me here and checking me out. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.